A girl who once stuck a perfect 10 now couldn't walk a straight line. She wasn't just an athlete. She was America's heartbeat, a 16-year-old sensation who tumbled into Olympic history and onto cereal boxes, magazine covers, and the walls of young girls everywhere. Mary Lou Retton didn't just win the all-around gold medal in 1984. She carried a nation's hope across a 4-inch beam with the confidence of a giant. She symbolized what was possible: grit, joy, faith, patriotism. She was perfection. With a ponytail dot, but in May 2025, the world saw a different version of her, a version recorded by a police officer's bodycam on a dim road in Fairmont, West Virginia. She wasn't defiant. She wasn't dangerous. She was broken, breathless, and drunk. The footage wasn't traumatic in the traditional sense. No crashes, no chase, no shouting. What made it devastating was its quietness. Mary Lou Retton, once the face of strength and control, was now struggling to stay upright, failing field sobriety tests and gasping for oxygen through a tank in her front seat. This is not a tabloid story. It's a warning, a mirror, a fall from grace that says as much about our society as it does about the woman in handcuffs. What really happened to Mary Lou Retton? And why can't we look away? The rise that defined a generation and the silence that followed. It was the summer of 1984, and America was looking for a miracle. The world had become a tense chessboard. The Cold War loomed large. The Soviet Union boycotted the Los Angeles Olympics, and in their absence, a nation hoped for something pure, something to believe in again. That something was Mary Lou Retton, just 16 years old, barely 5 feet tall, but built with the tenacity of 1,000 storms. She wasn't born into privilege. She wasn't molded in a state-sponsored gym like her Eastern Bloc competitors. She was a coal miner's daughter from Fairmont, West Virginia, with fire in her eyes and gravity-defying ambition in her bones. When Mary Lou vaulted that final jump and landed perfectly, solid, triumphant, the arena exploded. That moment didn't just win her the all-around Olympic gold medal. It launched her into legend. A standing ovation turned into a decades-long pedestal. She was a symbol of American greatness, a walking embodiment of the underdog spirit. She didn't just win gold, she became gold. Suddenly, Mary Lou was everywhere. Her smile beamed from cereal boxes. Her image danced across television screens. She was on Wheaties, on Letterman, in the White House. She wasn't just America's gymnast. She was America's daughter. But behind the flawless routines and marketing deals, behind the image that was built around her like armor, something else began to grow. Pressure. The kind of pressure that doesn't show up in highlight reels. The kind that lingers when the applause fades. No one tells you how to land when the world stops. Watching she was a child hero, then a teen spokeswoman, then a wife, then a mother. And somewhere in that rapid evolution, Mary Lou the person began to blur beneath the myth. The expectations didn't die with the flame of the Olympic torch. They simply changed shape. Years passed, the spotlight dimmed. But for someone like Mary Lou Retton, the echo of applause never quite fades. You're expected to always smile, always rise, always be the version of yourself that people fell in love with. At 16. So what happens? When the body begins to break down? When the phone stops ringing? When you feel your place in the world shrinking? That's the question no one asked. And that's the question that slammed into reality on a quiet road in Fairmont, West Virginia, 4 decades after her perfect 10, when a police officer's siren pulled her over. The little girl who once stunned the world now sat behind the wheel of a swerving Porsche, oxygen tank beside her, eyes distant. What happened between those two images, gold medalist and DUI suspect, isn't just a fall. It's a story that deserves to be told without filters. Because the distance between a pedestal and a prison cell is shorter than any of us want to admit. Footage doesn't lie, but it does ask for compassion. The video begins like so many others, grainy, silent at first, illuminated by the blue and red pulse of a cruiser's lights, cutting through a dark West Virginia night. To the officer, it might have felt like another routine stop, a driver veering, perhaps distracted, perhaps drowsy. But as he approached the vehicle, that assumption unraveled quickly. The driver rolled down her window, and it wasn't just the face that was familiar. It was the weight of it, the sense that she used to be. Someone important. Someone who once defied the odds. Someone who had stood taller than nations and carried medals in her smile. Mary Lou Retton. Her voice was soft, breathy. Her eyes darted with nervous energy. A portable oxygen tank sat beside her, tubes barely visible against her jacket. The wine, bottle uncorked, partially empty, rested within reach. The combination was surreal. Olympic royalty, oxygen-assisted, with open alcohol in a sports car. The officer's tone was calm but cautious. He asked her to step out. She tried, slowly. Her steps were uneven, uncertain. She apologized multiple times, as if instinctively trying to disarm the situation with charm, with likability tools that had once worked wonders. But they didn't work here. The moment she stood on the side of the road, under the harsh light of the cruiser's spotlight, she was no longer Mary Lou Retton, the icon. She was Mary Lou Retton, the individual, vulnerable, shaking, confused, barely able to complete basic motor tasks. He asked her to follow his finger with her eyes. Her head turned instead. He asked her to walk heel to toe in a straight line. She wobbled and miscounted. He asked her to balance on one leg. She barely made it past 2 seconds. At one point, she laughed nervously and said, "You're making me feel like I'm drunk." But the laughter didn't reach her eyes. There was no belligerence, no denial, no resistance. There was only breathlessness, both physical and metaphorical. As the test continued, she broke down slowly, not in some dramatic, cinematic collapse, but in the quiet unraveling of someone who knows deep down that they're no longer in control. Not of the moment, not of their body, maybe not of their life. And then came the most heartbreaking line. "I can't do it," she whispered. "I need oxygen." The Mary Lou that once flipped through the air with precision and grace could no longer balance on one foot. And this time, there was no medal waiting, only silence, the line between caution and collapse. The field tests were over, but the consequences had just begun. With her posture slouched and her words growing sloppier, the officer made the next routine request. The BREATHALYZER. In that moment, everything stopped. She hesitated, not because she didn't understand, but because she did. Blowing into that device wouldn't just confirm the obvious. It would immortalize it. "They say don't blow," she muttered, almost instinctively, like someone repeating advice that had been casually handed down over dinner tables or whispered between acquaintances. "Don't give them the number. Let your lawyers sort it out later." But that logic doesn't hold when you're already unraveling. The officer, still patient, explained the consequences. Refusing to blow means your license will be suspended. You'll be charged anyway. But Mary Lou's reply didn't change. Her tone did, from hesitant to defeated. "Whatever," she said, voice low. "I'm not blowing." This wasn't strategy. This wasn't rebellion. This was the voice of a woman who had lost her capacity to care. Because in that moment, the legal system wasn't her biggest threat. Her body was. Her shame was. Her grief was. She wasn't refusing because she thought she'd win. She was refusing because she didn't know how to keep losing. When you cuff an icon You also cuff an era. The arrest itself was quiet. Ma'am, place your hands behind your back. The words were gentle, but final. And her reaction said everything. I can't, she pleaded. I've had surgeries 8. Shoulder surgeries. Please don't, the officer nodded. He listened. He didn't force her arms back. He cuffed her in front. And yet, that small mercy didn't save her from what came next. The loss of dignity. The fear in her eyes. The weight of being seen, really seen, for the first time in years, but in the worst possible way. She asked to call Gino. She asked again and again, each time more desperate, more panicked, as if reaching anyone, might bring her back from the edge. But the law doesn't stop for regret, and time doesn't pause for legends. The Mary, Lou, who once stood taller than a nation, now curled into herself in the back of a cruiser, muttering that she just wanted her nails done, that she didn't mean harm, that she wasn't drunk. The cuffs didn't hurt her wrists. They hurt something deeper, something that never healed after the cheering stopped. The applause is gone, but the judgment is louder than ever. The arrest happened in May 2025. The footage didn't surface until July, but when it did, it exploded. Within hours of release, clips of the arrest blanketed the internet. TikToks, news channels, commentary podcasts. Bodycam footage shows Olympic champions stumbling during DUI arrest. Headlines screamed. Comment sections roared, and people chose sides quickly. She could have killed someone. Lock her up. She's a victim. Look at her. She's not well. She was my hero. This is just sad. She got what she deserved. But no one asked the more important question. What happens to the people we put on pedestals when the pedestal crumbles? The answer, it seems, is this. We either erase them or exploit them. The footage didn't just show a woman struggling to walk. It showed how quickly society flips from idolization to mockery. What few people saw was the most obvious truth. Mary Lou Retton didn't need a camera. She needed help. The fall didn't start with the traffic stop. To understand this footage, you have to rewind the tape further. Back to October 2023. That's when Mary Lou Retton's health crisis shocked the country. She was hospitalized with a rare, life-threatening pneumonia. She was fighting for her life, on oxygen, unable to breathe unassisted, and uninsured. Yes, America's Olympic icon had no health insurance. Her daughters turned to the public for help, launching a GoFundMe campaign. It raised over $400,000. The generosity was overwhelming. The situation was humbling. And while she survived the illness, something inside her didn't recover. The physical trauma lingered. The emotional weight deepened. Once the media cycle ended, so did the attention. There were no lucrative endorsements, no new career, just silence and an oxygen tank. Imagine what it feels like to be America's sweetheart, and then realize America has forgotten you. That's what she carried into that Porsche in May 2025. Not just wine, but heartbreak. Justice was served, but was healing? The legal proceedings moved quickly. The state charged her with DUI and refusing a chemical test. Mary Lou, through her attorney, entered a plea of no contest. She didn't fight it. She didn't deny it. She accepted the consequences. Under West Virginia law, that meant suspension of her driver's license, mandatory participation in a DUI education program, court fees, potential community service. But there's something no judge can assign. Public humiliation. Because once the footage went viral, Mary Lou wasn't just convicted legally. She was tried by culture. Every Google search, every news clip, every podcast analysis dissected her fall from grace. This wasn't just a sentencing. This was a rebranding. From legend to headline. Is she a villain? A victim? Or something in between? The public reaction fractured into two extremes. On one end, rage. She endangered lives. I don't care who she is. On the other, sorrow. She's clearly unwell. Where was her support system? But most people fell somewhere in the middle, caught between nostalgia and discomfort. Because how do you process the idea that your childhood hero is just another person, one capable of poor judgment, of decline, of needing grace? It's easier to keep our icons perfect. But Mary Lou's story forces us to admit perfection is a lie. And maybe, just maybe, the most heroic thing she's ever done is allow us to see her fall. The comeback we didn't expect, but might need the most. Redemption doesn't come with an audience. It happens in therapy sessions, in quiet apologies, in the slow, painful journey of self-forgiveness. Mary Lou Retton has already taken a first step. She didn't fight the charges. She didn't issue a self-righteous statement. She said she was sorry. But true redemption isn't about image management. It's about rebuilding a life from the inside out. Maybe she'll do that. Maybe she won't. But if she does, her second act might be more powerful than her first. Because the world doesn't need more heroes. It needs more survivors. What do we do with the people we once cheered for when they fall? This isn't just about Mary Lou Retton. It's about all of us that we cheer when someone wins. We adore their rise, but the moment they fall, we step back. We judge, we click, we move on. But what if we didn't? What if we stayed? What if we acknowledged that fame doesn't protect people from pain, and that perfection was never the point? Mary Lou Retton taught a generation how to fly. Now she's teaching us what it looks like to land, and it's not always pretty, but it's real. This has been your glimpse